Very good morning to Professor Paul Spoonley, Pro-Vice-Chancellor of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences at Massey University. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Katherine.
It's an exciting time for a demographer because Stats New Zealand's just put out some new data over where we're heading.
Early Christmas, yes.
Over the next decade. And was any of it surprising, or is it following a reasonably familiar trajectory?
It is, but what they've done is confirm the figures. So if you'd paid any attention, you would have seen that the year in which they're anticipating that Maori are superseded by Asians is now 2023.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's look. I asked you actually just before we flicked the mic on, are we pretty much now just about the most diverse country on earth when it comes to the sheer breadth of nationalities and ethnicities represented?
Absolutely we are. And if you take, one of the key elements out of these latest projections is the growth of the Asian populations, and I want to pluralise that. And when you compare the proportion of the country or of a city like Auckland and look at the number of people who self-identify as Asian, it is much higher than nearly any comparator city.
Well, let's look at the overall numbers first of all. Again, is the timeline coming forward for New Zealand hitting 5 million and Auckland hitting 2 million people, just a little over a decade for each of those. And of course, Auckland has seen the most rapid and is on a track for the most rapid population growth here.
It is, yep, absolutely.
And again, are we seeing the greatest diversity within that city as well?
Yeah. I mean, there is an Auckland story and there's a story for the rest of New Zealand, really.
Yes.
So if you look at the proportion of Aucklanders that are now Asian, it's a quarter. A quarter of all residents in Auckland are Asian, and what Stats New Zealand are projecting is 35%. And I think what's going to be interesting is to see how fast we hit those figures.
Well, let's look at some of the overall makeup of the population as it stands now and as it's set to come from this data. So European New Zealanders or Pākehā New Zealanders will grow in size, as you say, but decline as a proportion of the population. In fact, probably not too far off being less than 50% of Auckland's population. How far off?
I think that's quite soon, actually. That's one of those tipping points. So they'll become what we call a majority minority. So they're still the largest group, but they'll be less than 50% of the population.
Do they have a mandate to... No, sorry. I'm sorry.
Precisely.
That's been an interesting debate, hasn't it?
It has been a very interesting
When you're the
debate.
biggest, but you're not the majority.
No. And it's one of those things, Katherine, that it's sort of dawning on us how diverse we are and what do we need to do. And I think that's an interesting discussion, which is still...
We'll come to it.
Yeah, we'll come to it.
All right, so that's what's happening with the Pākehā, or the European Pākehā population in Auckland. Nationwide... Is it on a similar track?
The same. The same.
Maori and Pacifica peoples then, as you say, probably growing as relative proportions because of quite high fertility rates.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Maori will hit 1 million in the not too distant future.
All right. Any other standout changes to the numbers or surprises to you in the numbers, or simply that the expected deadlines are coming forward because, particularly with respect to the immigration numbers.
Population growth. And the context is, just to remind your listeners, is that we're growing at 2.1%, which is high.
Yeah.
If you look at the numbers of Asians, they're growing at 3.5%. So that's why they're contributing.
Yeah.
Pākehā are growing at less than 0.5%.
Yeah.
So that's why we're seeing this diversification.
Right. And it's also in some ways the argument for immigration, isn't it? Because you're going to need workers, you're going to need taxpayers, especially as that baby boomer demographic retires. We know there's some big issues coming up there.